Hey everyone, and welcome on in to today's video where we are going to be taking a look at all of the brand new scopes and sights in Rainbow Six Siege for Operation Shadow Legacy. Now if you didn't already know, there have been a load of brand new scopes and sights that have come into the test server for Operation Shadow Legacy and are going to be releasing when it does come out for console players and PC. Now today we're going to compare all of the different scopes and sights. We're going to conclude which ones are the best, which ones have the pros and cons that we are going to mention, and as well we're also going to be taking a look at which one is going to be the meta for Rainbow Six Siege. If this video does help you out or you are excited for Operation Shadow Legacy, be sure to drop a like on the video. Let's dive on into these new sights. Now we did actually do a video discussing the topic of why ACOGs are going to be fading out of the meta around about a few weeks ago, and that was before the test server or the reveal did take place. And to kind of summarise, I explained my thoughts on the pros and cons of the ACOG, the holographic, and the different sights in Rainbow Six Siege at the time, and as well why the ACOG is going to be fading out of the meta. Now when I said that, I didn't quite mean the ACOG would quite frankly become irrelevant to the game, as now the ACOG sight is practically non-existent on most of the weapons in Siege. Well, you know what, we'll just say I'm a time traveller and I came through and I knew what was going to happen. Let's move on with that. Now anyway, first of all, let's take a look at the different scopes and sights, the new ones that we have been added into the game. So with the test server and Operation Shadow Legacy of right now, what they are doing is they have modified 2 existing scopes, and as well they have introduced 4 brand new sights and scopes to Siege, a new red dot option, a new holographic option, and 2 new scopes with different zoom levels. Now if you did already think that the red dot was a horrible sight and you should never wear it and it should be completely banned from the game, well, it's been revamped a little with the new red dot sight, and I'm telling you, it does look very nice now. Make sure to comment down below if you are a red dot user and a proud red dot user. Now this also means that a load of operators have got different scopes that haven't previously been accessible for them, so there's a lot of changes and buffs and nerfs for that. So for the scopes, they are going to have a 1.5x, a 2x, a 2.5x, and a 3x. Now the 3x is only going to be distributed out to DMRs to kind of give them a little bit of a buff. So you will see them on operators like Blackbeard with their DMR, and as well another operator like Twitch for example with her DMR. Now first of all, the ACOG is getting modified from a 3x scope all the way down to a 2.5x, and the reason behind this is that some players mentioning that the ACOG feels a bit too zoomed in, and they felt like reducing the magnification for that, which is essentially what I did cover in the video discussing the topic of ACOGs and the other sights. So there are going to be examples of what these different sights are going to look like as we cover them. Obviously the ACOG now being a 2.5x scope is going to look like that. The brand new red dot scope is also going to have a 1x zoom level, and it has been revamped to make it a bit more cleaner and give you a better option. As well as this, the new holographic sight is looking like a 1x zoom level as well, and it does give you a new option for a holographic. Now if we dive into those tips and tricks for the scopes that we have covered and the pros and cons of them, the new red dot, the brand new one, is going to give you a more wider peripheral vision when zoomed in. It's not going to take up much of your screen. If you don't know what peripheral vision means, it's simply how much you can see of your surroundings when you are going to be zoomed in or ADSing with your scope. And the disadvantage of the red dot before it got that little buff is essentially it took up a lot of your screen. This red dot is a lot cleaner, and I've used it myself and I would highly recommend picking it for certain operators. I've given it a try on Jaeger, which is very viable for sure. Now the brand new holographic sight does seem to have a similar peripheral vision to the regular holographic sight in terms of the scope not taking too much of your screen up, and you can see a lot of your surroundings, but as well it does have that regular 1x zoom level, and on top of that it's got a different reticle. It doesn't have a regular Siege reticle, so this reticle is kind of completely different to any one that we've seen before. So if you do prefer that sight and it is going to help you out more having that reticle, I would highly recommend you to pick it up. Now for all of the other operators that previously had access to that red dot, they're still going to have access to the red dot. Essentially it's going to be a revamped sight. Now for this new holographic sight, the most noticeable changes are going to be coming to operators like Sledge for example, and as well the new operator Zero on top of that for the new holographic. And as well an operator like IQ will also be getting access to it. Now there are a lot of different sights and scopes that have been added into the game, so it is going to be very hard for you, understandably, to actually track and see where the operators are going to be getting their sights from, which ones they are going to be getting, and what buffs and nerfs are going to be coming to them. Now at the end of the video, or towards the end of the video when we've covered everything and we've compared all the sights, we are going to be chucking up a little bit of an info card that's going to help you out a ton to give you a complete overview of which operators have got access to the new sites and which ones aren't. Now next up that's been added has been the scope, which is going to be a 1.5x. Now this is personally one of my favourites. is going to provide a 1.5x zoom level, and it's going to be referred to the scope 1.5x. Now this is a fantastic scope in my eyes because it can use that longer range engagements and as well the closer ones. Essentially what it is a perfect balance between that ACOG and that holographic. There isn't really a balance or a midway between a holographic or an ACOG scope, and I would say this 1.5x is going to be that. You are going to be taking a lot of close range engagements in Rainbow Six Siege, which is perfect for this scope, but as well you can also fare at those longer ones. And as well the reticle itself doesn't really get in the way of too much. If you don't know what the reticle is, it quite simply is the little middle dot that is going to be covering up your screen when you are going to be ADSing. The specific value for those close range and the average range engagements is going to be 10 meters. That is what the most average engagements does take place for Siege. Mirror is going to be getting access to it on the Vector. Goyo does have the Vector, but he won't get access to it. Mirror's got the 1.5x. Lesion has got the 1.5x on his SMG, and as well as Knock. Knock with her FMJ is going to be getting access to this scope, which is going to be giving her a little bit of a buff. Now can we talk about Lesion and Mirror? Quite frankly, they are already strong operators. Adding this 1.5x is going to make them a machine potentially. Now so far this one is definitely up there in terms of how good the scope is going to be, and I would highly recommend you to run it. Now next up is going to be the 2x scope. Now this scope is going to have a 2x zoom level, which is going to help you at those longer range engagements. It's going to have quite a slim frame to it, but it is actually going to have a blockage for your vision. As you look towards the top left of your scope, there is some sort of a little dial that is going to be on your scope, therefore that's going to block your vision, so it is going to get in the way a little bit. You'll have to bear this in mind. The reticle itself, I'm not a massive fan of. It does get in the way, especially quite a lot when you are going to be in those gunfights, which is why the 2x for me personally hasn't been the greatest so far. You'll realistically only be finding this on those LMGs and assault rifles, not too many on the SMGs. Now the 2x scope is going to be distributed out to operators such as Finker, Gridlock, Sophia. Those type of operators are going to be getting that 2x scope. Now moving on to that 2.5x scope, we are going to be taking a look at this one. Now the 2.5x scope is going to have the NATO scope, which is obviously the regular one, and as well it's also going to have the Russian scope. Essentially this is going to look like the ACOG, but it's going to be a little bit less zoomed in, as it is going to have that zoom level of a 2.5x. Now like I mentioned, the ACOG is starting to fade away from that meta, and with it being reduced to a 2.5x scope now, realistically the reason why the ACOG was so popular is because it was fantastic at those long range engagements. Now it has been reduced into the 2.5x. Now realistically on paper it's not got a mid ground, and it just has been reduced from its highest level. So in my eyes it has taken a nerf, and I don't think it is going to actually help it, that nerf, at those close range engagements, because the scope level and the zoom level has been reduced. Instead I think it's going to put it at a disadvantage, as the ACOG was so supreme for those long range engagements. Now we move on to the final beast at the top of the scope chain. We have the 3x scope. Now this scope is going to be coming onto DMRs, which means you can run a little bit of a nasty setup with a very toxic setup. The Blackbeard DMR and a 3 scope with a shield. Oh no. Next time you see a Blackbeard main with a shield up and a DMR and a 3x scope in his hand, I'd get running and I'd get hiding. Now the 3x scope is going to be fantastic at long range engagements, as it does have a 3x zoom level, and the reticle for it is rather large, but I do think that's going to help it out at those longer range engagements instead of giving it a disadvantage. And the actual scope itself is a little bit thicker, but that is obviously to kind of contradict the actual 3x zoom level that it does have. Overall, I think that scope is really quite viable. It is fantastic with the DMR, and especially using an operator like Dokkaebi. Essentially that is going to be running an ACOG, as the ACOG was at a 3x zoom level. I do think you can run it, especially with Dokkaebi. Now if you are looking for that info card where you can see all of the different operators that have had their scopes added, it will be on your screen now. You can take a look at the different ones. There have been a lot of changes that have definitely come in for sure. They are going to be allowing you to buff the operators and as well nerf the operators. For example, Lesion and Mirror, what a fantastic buff they have got. Overall, I would definitely say closer range sights are going to become in the meta. Closer range sights are definitely in the meta now, especially with this change that has happened. It's kind of shifted it all into their favour. And as well, with the different sights that have come into the game, the Russian sights are still going to be there, just to let you know. And the longer range sights are going to have a little bit of a nerf. The ones, for example, the 2x, and as well also going to be the 2.5x, I do believe they aren't going to be as strong as they were before. I think the 1.5x could be an absolutely incredible scope and could be the meta for most of the weapons. The 2x and the 2.5x right now aren't my particular favourite at all, but I would say the 3x is definitely viable because of those longer range engagements. Either you have a mid-level, you have either the extreme, or you have a close range sight. Whichever sight you do decide to pick up in Rainbow Six Siege for Operation Shadow Legacy, please don't run Blackbeard with a DMR and a shield and the 3x scope. Be sure to let me know which scope you are going to be picking up in Rainbow Six Siege yourself when the new ones do release. If the video did help you out with the different sights in Rainbow Six Siege, or you enjoyed it, be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe for more tips and tricks and videos like this one. I hope you all have an incredible rest of your day, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.